And now we are going to jump into our interview with Jennifer Skues. She's our health psychologist. She's back here to the breakfast show, and she's beloved of many of our listeners, and she's going to be sharing with us a little bit more about autoimmune disorders and the connection with inflammation, and a little bit more about her journey as well, her testimony. She shared with us a couple of weeks ago about the cancer that she was battling through, and she's going to be sharing some of her learnings from that process with us. Jennifer, welcome to the breakfast show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here again.
Absolutely. It's wonderful to have you. So, Jennifer, tell us a little bit about, a lot of listeners were asking us and sending questions. Where is Jennifer? What happened to her? Because they haven't heard you for such a long time. Can you just remind us of what happened?
Okay. Well, what happened at the beginning of last year, in February, I was diagnosed with a throat cancer, which I'd had before about 7 years ago. But this time I had a slower treatment process. But what had happened, the cancer had actually damaged what's a nerve system. There were two main nerve systems that run from the brain through to the body. And this particular nerve system operates the muscles in the tongue. And this is why my speech was so impaired. It's called the hypoglossal nerve. And it isn't permanently damaged. Sometimes it can be. People who have a stroke can actually have it so damaged they can never speak again. But I'm finding my speech is recovering very, very well. I have some little problems like with the S sound, but generally I'm doing very well. I'm back to doing all I used to do. But at the moment, I'm still in repair mode, as they say. The other nerve system that was struggling is called the vagus nerve, V-A-G-U-S. And that nerve system runs from the brain to every organ of your body. And that was actually highly inflamed, which this is where God is so good. He showed me all the way what to do and what the problem was.
Wow.
So, yeah, I'm just so impressed. And so I've done a whole study on it, and I'm now teaching it in programs, because the vagus nerve, when it's inflamed, it inflames every organ of the body, and that inflammation goes from the organ back to the brain. It's a two-way system, up and down. And when that's inflamed, it causes a type of inflammation which is ongoing and will cause what they call autoimmune inflammatory disorders. And cancer is one of them. But there are many, there's about 100 different disorders identified, including depression, anxiety, mood problems, arthritis, Parkinson's. The list goes on and on. Diabetes is another one. So they're all what we call modern-day diseases. So my mission now is to help people to understand it and to actually work on keeping their system in better working order.
Okay. But Jennifer, what kind of exams allowed you to identify that the vagus nerve was the root cause of all of that inflammation?
Well, I already was aware of it because of the work I do, but I'd never really studied it. And what had happened, this is where God is so good, because I'd come across a product a friend recommended that was high anti-inflammatory. It's a liquid, and I bought some and I was applying it on all the neckline, which is where the vagus nerve runs through. And then afterwards, for some reason, the vagus nerve was presented to me. I think it might have been a booklet, something I was reading. And so I researched it and realized I was actually treating the inflammation in that area. And so I did a major study on it and found out there are so many wonderful ways you can actually treat the inflammation. Some people will already be doing them, like just relaxation, breathing exercises. There are some wonderful things we can do. So now I'm using some of them, but I'm happy to share them as we go with the listeners because they're very easy to do.
Okay, so you basically discovered, or you connected. It was yourself, so it was not an exam that we're looking at different inside of your body and say, oh, this is the cause of inflammation. It was kind of a casually discovered, and of course, God was certainly helping that process for you to realize, oh, this is the vagus nerve that's causing all this inflammation. So tell us a little bit about how to disinflame our bodies, because there's a lot of people that daily struggle with, as you mentioned, autoimmune inflammatory diseases. What can people do about it? Where would you even start?
Well, most people go to the doctor, and look, I'm using a medical model as well with my treatment, included in doing a lot of natural things, and the doctor will treat the symptoms, but they don't always recognise the cause. And inflammation doesn't always show up in the blood, but it's in the body. And there's 3 different types of inflammation, and when it's ongoing, it becomes a problem. And there's a lot of natural things you can do to actually treat it. And the only way I think you detect it is when you end up with a health problem, and you're not sure why. So it's very easy. There's lots of things on YouTube. If you Google vagus nerve, you'll find out lots of good information. So it's not a secret as such. It's just a matter of knowing what to look for. So I recommend, sure, if it's that bad, like Crohn's disease is one of them, and people get so sick, depressed, their gut, because the gut is your second brain. And if that's not good, then the brain's not working well. So we're a whole system, and we need to work from body to brain to treat it. And that's what this highway of nerves does. It's a pathway that connects the brain and every organ of the body. So it's important.
So I'm assuming that diet would be perhaps one of the most important steps into reducing and tackling this inflammation. Is that right?
Okay. Yes. Well, one is to manage your stress. Stress is one of the big initiators of the vagus nerve being inflamed. So being able to do some stress management, relaxation strategies. I mean, just going out into nature, spending 5-10 minutes every morning in the sunshine. Make sure you do some diaphragm breathing, some what we call heart-focused breathing, which I've talked about before. And when you're doing slow, even breathing, focus the mind on the area of the heart, because the heart is like the central system for the brain and the body. If the heart fails, everything fails. So having good heart health. The vagus nerve also affects our immune system. So if it's inflamed, it impacts immunity. It has to do with other nervous systems, including what we call the autonomic nervous system. And that's where either when we're stressed, we put the foot on the accelerator and rev the engine and run on cortisol and adrenaline, which isn't good for mental health or any sort of health. So the vagus nerve can put what we call the brake on. Take your foot off the accelerator and put the brake on. So what you're doing is doing these little things will keep putting the brake on.
I see. So managing stress, that's definitely a big one. And so you mentioned, breathing techniques as well. And I know that you're a big promoter of them. And what about the importance of sleep? Because I know that there's a research that came through very, very recently, and they found out that there's a big connection between a number of types of cancers and the insomnia and people's sometimes inability to get a good night of sleep. How do you does sleep affect the inflammation processes as well? And what have you learned about how to get a better night of sleep for those who are struggling with it?
Yeah, sleep does a lot of damage to the brain, but so getting a good night's sleep is crucial in being able to recover from any disorder. And I find the clients I have, the majority of them do not sleep well. So one of the things is having a regular sleep time. Don't stay up hours and hours too late. Some people are night owls. It's breaking that pattern. And it's not just a simple thing. You really have to have a change of the way you live life to do it. One, to de-stress before you go to bed, relax, do some relaxation strategies. And this is where calming the vagus nerve down will help that, because it's that connection. Things like, just simple things like before you go to bed or you're preparing for bed, splash the water with cold, the face with cold water, right? And the cold water, particularly the cheeks and the eyes, helps to de-inflame that nervous system.
Wow.
A simple thing, and it will refresh you and relax you. So that's why I suggest people go online and have a look. You know, I've got lots of different strategies that I teach, but it's, you know, so as we go, I'll bring up different ones. But this is where having that calmness before you go to bed and doing some breathing, you know, and I recommend people, because as Christians, and even if you're not a Christian, reading God's word, I find the 23rd Psalm is wonderful. And doing things like that, having a nighttime ritual will help, not eating too late, and not having caffeine and things like that, particularly later in the day. But I recommend you don't have any caffeine. Yeah, there's some great herbal teas. You can have a nice hot or warm herbal tea like chamomile, or you can get sleepy time teas, things that relax you.
And it's amazing. So what I'm hearing is that if we there's definitely lots of little things that we can do. We can put ourselves a nice self-care, anti-inflammatory routine before going to bed. And
Absolutely.
That routine is going to have, it's going to not only help us sleep better, but have a whole range of positive health effects long term.
Absolutely, yeah. And also psychologically, when the sun starts going down, we often, if you don't sleep, we go, oh no, it'll be another night. You've already primed your system psychologically not to produce the right chemicals like melatonin. So to have that mindset of, no, I'm going to go to bed and relax tonight versus sleep is very helpful. And that's what you have to do, learn to work on relaxation.
Yes, fascinating, Jennifer. So, and look, we have about 2 minutes left. What other tips to help our bodies to fight against inflammation that you can offer us?
Doing simple things like stretching, having big stretches. Things like they found that, like with breathing, if you find, because when you're stressed, you can't easily breathe. You tend to hold the breath. And do a big breath out first. It's like blowing through a straw, and just really breathe out, and then have a short breath in and another long breath out. You know, and do that a few times, and that helps to de-inflame, but also it relaxes. It puts that brake on your autonomic nervous system, so you stop producing adrenaline and cortisol.
Amazing. So having good deep breath and a couple of sessions of that, breathing in for as long as possible and then out as if through a straw will help to tackle the inflammation. Have a short breath
in and then a long breath out.
Okay. A long breath out and a short breath in?
Absolutely. And that will help.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating.
That relaxes, resets the vagus nerve.
And what about for a wake-up routine? Is there any tips for, like, we spoke about, preparing to go to bed, but what about when you wake up? Is there anything that you found that is helpful into tackling inflammation?
To get the system going, have a big stretch. If you've got a cat, what's one of the first things they do? Have a big stretch in the morning. So we need to do the same. And when you get up, do a bit more stretching and a little bit more activity to get the heart rate going, and breathing. Open the window, get fresh air in if it's certainly not too freezing, and do some of that breathing, just deep breathing, diaphragm breathing, and it will, the oxygen, and that will wake you up. Get out in the sun for about 10 minutes at the least, if you can, 5 or 10 minutes, and that will set up your biochemistry for the day.
Amazing. Jennifer, thank you so much. These are some really practical steps here on how to decrease inflammation in the body, which is, and as you mentioned, it's the mother of all diseases. It's the root cause of so many conditions. It's because we are too inflamed, and at the same time, there are so many things that are quite within our reach.
Thanks for being a part of the Faith FM family. Join our community on Facebook or get in touch at 1-800-FAITH-FM.